fellow travelers. Welcome on in. This is the 158th level of the RPG Cave. I'm one of your hosts, the level 199 human Dark Lord, Ryan Turford, and I am joined, as always, by the level 199 Elf Battle Alchemist. How's it going, Dr. Garret Bland?
I'm doing good. And, you say Dr. Garret Bland. Seth actually put in his post for Pants Patreon that I'm a medical doctor, and that is absolutely not true.
100% it's not. I mean, that's a new move right there.
That would be illegal, impersonating a medical doctor, which you're not. So I will not give you medical advice, and even if I unintentionally give you medical advice, do not take it because it's not official medical advice.
It's also I was gonna say, like, what do you know about like parts of the body and stuff like that? Like, you don't know anything about that. It's fine. This is why I just referred you as Dr. Garret Bland.
Well, actually, at my work, I'm a scientist in drug discovery, so I know a little bit about the body, but I am not a medical doctor in any way. So don't trust me at all.
Exactly. Should I put up the banner and be like, don't trust medical advice from the RPG Cave at all? Because if I give you medical advice, probably not. You probably shouldn't take it either.
Yeah, probably. So there you go. I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing good. I don't know if you knew this, Garret, but this weekend, long weekend here in Canada, because it's Thanksgiving here in Canada this weekend.
It's crazy. Every time you tell me there's a Thanksgiving in Canada, it just blows my mind. But yes, keep on going.
Not only is it Thanksgiving in Canada, Garret, but it's Thanksgiving in Canada in October, in the middle of October, essentially. Most people are usually, really, really, usually really excited because they usually have Monday off. I'm working this Monday, but it's good.
Is it typically on a Monday?
Yeah. So the way it works, Garret, is that Thanksgiving happens every the second Sunday of October, every single year. So the holiday itself is on the Sunday, but obviously since it bleeds into Monday, everyone gets the Monday off. That's kind of how that works. Like Thanksgiving Monday is like usually the holiday that your workplace gives you off. But
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. So the American Thanksgiving is every third Thursday, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's interesting how Thanksgiving's like, hey, it's the first or second or whatever. You don't really have those holidays. Can you imagine any other holiday like that? I can't, other than like religious holidays, I guess, like Easter and maybe some Jewish holidays or something. But other than that,
I know a lot of our Canadian holidays are kind of structured that way.
Okay.
If it's like a more of a minor holiday or one that's not like a required holiday, like not the last holiday we had last month, National Truth and Reconciliation Day. It's like always the last Sunday of every single September, as an example. And we get those with some other holidays as well, like family days like that too.
Oh, we do get Labor Day, Memorial Day, I guess. Those are just Mondays.
Yeah.
Randomly. So
also
cool.
HVAC Sparky, of course. I know HVAC Sparky, also Canadian, chimes in there saying that they also have Monday off this week.
So a question for you guys. What's the cuisine for a Canadian Thanksgiving?
Basically the same as American. Turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce.
Same thing. Wow.
Pretty much literally pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
Some families will do like a ham instead of a turkey. To like kind of break it up, or a lot of times, like the way we kind of do things here is we'll like have turkey for Thanksgiving and then have ham for Christmas or something like that. That's kind of how my family does things. But
yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. Now, do you guys watch hockey? I don't know.
Well, actually,
Sports?
football is on at that time.
Cool.
Because it's on a Sunday, so most people actually end up watching football on.
Oh, cool.
That day. I mean, sometimes there's Thanksgiving hockey too, but like the season I think just started for hockey, so there probably will be some Thanksgiving hockey, but most of the time it's usually football.
Cool. Sounds good. And is it a Canadian league or do you watch American football?
No, NFL, man.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, cool.
I mean, to be fair, the CFL also exists, and people watch the CFL. I mean, there's a whole there are whole episodes of Sweet Hangs basically dedicated to just learning about the CFL.
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah, it's and cool. To be fair, some people just don't watch don't watch any sports on Thanksgiving here in Canada as well.
Yeah, that's true. Anyways, I was very curious about your Canadian Thanksgiving traditions. So
yeah,
but I'm good now.
That's good.
I'm satiated.
You've had your fill. Your belly's full of Canadian.
I pondered into the Canadian holiday scheme, and now I'm out. I'm not interested much at all. So
yeah,
there you go.
Excellent. Well, this is the RPG Cave where we talk about RPGs all the time, except for when we're talking about Canadian Thanksgiving. So folks, if you want to support the show, there's a number of amazing ways you can do that. Number one, if you're watching the live stream right now over at youtube.com/carpoolgaming or on twitch.tv/carpoolgaming live, don't forget to subscribe to the channel or follow the channel if you're on the old Twitch. And then, of course, let us know in the comments below what you think about Final Fantasy VII or if you're excited about Metaphor ReFantazio. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you're listening on audio feeds, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. And rate us if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also, if you want one big podcast feed with the entire Carpool Gaming Cinematic Universe on it, head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/carpoolgaming, just like Hydraulic Monkey, TJ, and Josh Couture did, who all joined as free members over on that old Patreon. So shout out to all of our brand new members, as well as all of our existing patrons over at patreon.com/carpoolgaming. Y'all rock. Speaking of the Patreon, of course, Garret, new Patreon content this week. A little something from you.
I recorded last night. I went into many different rabbit holes. What I do is I read everyone's questions, and then if there's any trailing thought, I go into the internet and try to see if I can just finish those pinwheel thoughts, So, yeah, it was pretty good. Overall, good recording.
Yes. So your episode, Patreon podcast for Patrons podcast, will be out tomorrow morning. From the time y'all are listening to this, if you're watching the live stream, otherwise if you're listening to the feed feeds, it's already out. Go on the Patreon and go listen to it. Also, we have a new pilot of a new show from Fuya, the mini indie van that's now available also on the Patreon as well. So make sure to go check that out. Also, we have our website carpoolgaming.com where you can go pick up an RPG Cave t-shirt or Extra Life memorabilia on the Carpool Gaming website, because I don't know if you knew this, Garrett, but Extra Life is coming up very soon.
Yeah,
it's only a couple weeks away now.
It's less than a month.
Yes.
And can you believe it?
Please be excited.
Please be excited.
So yeah, definitely go head on over there if you pick up some merch. The best part about that as well is the proceeds from all the Extra Life merch will go directly towards the Extra Life pool over the course of the year. So
nice.
Make sure to go pick those up as well. Well, Garrett, I know you got 3 things for me, so tell me about them.
Okay, 3 things. First thing, it is Fleet Week in San Francisco. You know what that is, Ryan?
I'm assuming it has something to do with boats.
Well, it has to do with boats. I also do a lot with planes. So there's a lot of airplane shows, boat shows that's happening around the Bay Area. The military comes out and they do these really cool flight formations around the city. So super cool. During work, I hear the jets just flying across the skyscrapers and making their wingspan formation. Super dope. So if you're, in the Bay Area, check out Fleet Week. It's super, super cool. You just go outside and watch airplanes fly around. That's
nice.
it.
That sounds basically because we here in Canada get a lot of air shows where planes will just fly around and do cool tricks and stuff like that. So I'm imagining it's just a whole week of just that stuff kind of thing.
Pretty much. Number 2, I've just realized I'm not a great cook, by the way. I don't know. I don't know if you know that. I'm not a great cook, but I can make really good pancakes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I've settled on my recipe, and it doesn't require butter or milk, or cow milk. I use oat milk instead, and it's pretty fragrant, and it's really, really good. So there you go. I just wanted to shout out the pancake.
First of all, a big portion of the carpool community is probably very excited right now, Garrett, because we have the classic debate in the carpool community: pancakes versus waffles versus French toast.
I don't know why French toast is in the mix, but sure. Okay.
I don't know either, because French toast is not as good as waffles or pancakes. But
I think it's its own thing too. But yeah, keep on going.
But we all know, of course, the true winner, Garrett, the real number one answer is pancakes. So
yes.
This gets me
1000%.
very. See, RPG Cave is officially hashtag Team Pancakes.
Can you do a waffle fest? Absolutely not, because you got all those waffle irons going on, and everything would be super, I don't know, like very limited. Pancakes, it's just a wide, flat, skillet or grill. You can flip those pancakes left and right. You can make like 1,000 pancakes in no time.
You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with pancakes too. You can do chocolate chip pancakes, banana pancakes, blueberry pancakes, Mickey Mouse pancakes. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff. But Ron, of course, taking umbrage to this, the French toast comment coming in there saying French toast, then waffles, then pancakes.
French toast is just its own thing, though. There's just, I don't know. It's not in the pancake waffle debate because it's, pancake and waffles batter. Like right. It's like a batter and you're shaping it around.
Well, you technically batter the toast though.
With egg?
It's a different kind of thing, but you batter it with egg as opposed to like.
I guess so. I don't know. French toast is good. It's like a second tier. It's like, I don't know. It's just breakfast.
Like if we were doing a breakfast tier list, like you might have like waffles and pancakes in like the A or S tiers, but then you might have French toast like farther down the tier or
probably B. Yeah. And it's somewhere on there. Anyways, pancakes, I make them pretty good. Number 3, I've been watching RPG Maker MV tutorials now.
Oh.
Ryan, I'm sure you're familiar with RPG Maker.
Yep.
For folks who don't know, RPG Maker is like kind of it's a GUI interface that lets you make 2D classic RPGs from the ground up. Of course, they give you stock pixelated character art and maps and stuff, but you can literally just grab anything from the community or you can build it yourself. But I've been watching some tutorials. It gets pretty far in depth with connecting certain maps and, dialogue and quests and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm intrigued. I do have RPG Maker MV in my Steam library.
Okay.
So I don't know. Maybe I'll, get an idea.
This reminds me of like past RPG Cave episodes, Garrett, because I remember like Blaze Knight in particular, who used to write in a lot, used to actually write in about RPG Maker all the time. Because I think Blaze Knight used to make a bunch of like stuff in RPG Maker and was always curious like if
that's super cool. Yeah.
In RPG Maker. And we always said no, because like neither of us really went into that. But now, Garrett, you're learning more about it. Are you gonna make an RPG?
I don't know if I have like so much time to do that, but if the idea pops up after I'm going through these tutorial videos, maybe some bite-sized ones just to teeter out, just to test out, see if there's actual legs in these.
Jan32 is asking, is it time to build an RPG Cave RPG? And Sean, of course, chimes in and says, yeah, it is time.
John32, that thought's been in my mind, yes. But again, I have to get my sea legs going, It can't be just like a first go around and, I made this RPG Cave RPG. No, I have to, demo it out and test out certain things. So.
That's also probably not the one you want to start on.
Oh, for sure.
You probably want to work your way up to the RPG Cave. RPG
Definitely.
Down the road. So for now, at least, people will have to deal with us doing RPG Cave D&D at Extra Life to kind of make up for it at this point.
For sure. And of course, Ryan will play test, give me feedback. I'll probably send it out to a select few folks out there. And, it will be a project if I go down that route. But for now, I'm just watching tutorials, seeing how it goes.
I love this comment from you on 32. I've got the perfect villain for the game in mind. He's sitting right next to you.
Yeah, sounds good. So there you go.
Those are your 3 things, Garrett. I like it. I think there is a good variety.
My 3 things right there.
All right, Garrett. We're 15 minutes into the show. We should probably start talking about role-playing games.
Maybe.
So let's go. Before we go, of course, to the read from the secret text. There's a little quest mark over there, Garrett. A side quest.
A side quest.
I'm gonna go over there. We're gonna tap on this person's head has a little exclamation mark, of course, to indicate there's a quest there. Because we're going to go pick up a side quest, Garrett, because
Cool.
I can finally talk publicly about this. I have, in fact, played and finished Metaphor ReFantazio.
Blowing my mind here.
Yes.
Wow.
I was provided an early code by our friends over at Atlas, so huge shout out to them for providing an early code for the purposes of talking about it. And I am so excited to talk about Metaphor ReFantazio with you, Garrett, because, again, most people haven't... I wasn't really able to mention that I had been playing it or anything like that, and I have a lot to say. So
cool.
Please be excited. So first off, I'm pulling out my phone here because Kevin Ainsworth immediately comes in with this question, saying, Kevin Ainsworth says, I want the final hour count, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. So I pulled it up on my phone, Garrett. 58 hours and 44 minutes it took me to finish this game.
Not bad. That's not bad for a Atlas sized RPG.
Yeah.
Probably on the shorter side.
Yeah, it is. Because, like, honestly, I think it's about the same amount of time it took me to finish Persona 3 Reload. So,
yeah.
It didn't take me, super long. It also wasn't too short. Like, I felt like when I played through it, like, it felt like the perfect length to me in a lot of ways, where it didn't really, like, because Persona 5, Garrett, as much as I like that game, I do feel like that game, wears out its welcome a little bit if you play it for too long. So I really enjoyed it. So, ask what not why. Ask the question: is this doing everything or main story quest focused? No, it is actually. I maxed out all the social links. I maxed out all of the royal virtues, which are kind of like your stats in this game. They're different from the ones from Persona, but they're basically the same process. I did all the side quests. I've defeated all the bounties. I did all the side dungeons. I basically did everything, but I didn't come close to the 1,000 gamer score. I played it on Xbox, Garrett. Believe it or not. I did not play it on
Interesting.
I played this on Xbox. I only got 400 gamer score for this game out of the 1,000.
So less than half.
Because when even the thing is, while I was playing it, I couldn't see the achievements. And when the achievements popped up the other day, I noticed that there's a bunch of very specific achievements. Okay. They're not missable, but you have to know to do them in order to do them. So that's why, if you're gonna play this and you want to go for the platinum trophy or the 1,000 gamer score, you're gonna want to use a guide to do that.
Just to hash those specific achievements out for sure. Okay.
Yeah. But also I'm just going to throw it out there too, as well, that you can't actually get the platinum or the 1,000 gamer score in one playthrough. You have to do the game plus at least once.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind if you're jump into it. But honestly, Garrett, this is the reviews are out there, so everyone knows that this game is good. And I mean, this is something that, I told you about, a couple days ago, but I'm just I feel like this is easily my game of the year. It would be
very exciting. It
would be very hard to top. I mean, I still have faith that maybe Dragon Age could basically get up there if it's kind of a return to form, or maybe one or two other things that come out this year. But dude, the way that they changed up the gameplay in Metaphor this time around just made all the difference in the world. Changing the little things that Atlas did with Metaphor really, really elevated it to an even higher level than something like Persona 5 did, because
super cool.
One of the things I loved, first of all, is you have kind of a shorter calendar system this time around, where even though you're still got the calendar system where you're doing something every single day, when you're getting your side characters, for example, when you're doing your contacts, you don't have there's not a bar that you kind of have to fill up with your dialogue choices to kind of level them up or anything like that. You visit them 8 times, you level them up to max level.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, which is so much better than the confidant system in Persona 5, where you had to use a guide to make sure that you said the right thing, or you would have to go visit them extra times to go do that, and have kind of nothing conversation with them. So I love that aspect to it. Also, just the action combat on the open map, because you've always been able to, in the Persona games, been able to sneak up behind an enemy and kind of get like the advanced kind of attack. And you can do that in this game. But just having the action element on the open map where you can just mow down enemies that are below your level, or, you know, take off like half the health bar if you fully stun the enemy before attacking them. Like, I think that really sped up the pace of battles as well and just made it just feel like a faster game. Because I think if that stuff was slower, you would probably tack on an extra 10 to 20 hours just for the combat sections alone, with the combat taking longer.
Right. All the repetitiveness and everything, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I have to grind for levels, Garrett, like it's really, really easy to do in this game if you have to do that, versus something like Persona where you're spending like hours and hours in mementos, and it kind of feels like a deflating kind of grueling experience.
I kind of felt that with the demo when I was actually beating enemies. I'm like, oh, I don't have to go into turn-based battle. Super dope.
Yeah, but when you the downside to that though is you hardly get any rewards for the enemies if you defeat them that way. If you actually go into a turn-based battle with them, it actually increases the amount of rewards you get for that.
Okay.
By quite a substantial margin, especially towards the end of the game. So just you kind of have to keep that in mind. But story of course is incredible. Like Atlas did a fantastic job, just like they did with the Persona games, where you really care about all of your party members, but even just the way that they make you care about like side characters that just exist in the world that you interact with as well. I think they did a great job with that too. And everything about this game, dude, like that from the visual design to, you know, the anime cutscenes to where the story goes, like everything feels like really tight and compact in a great way. And I cannot recommend this game enough more. If you like Japanese role-playing games at all, like turn-based games, like get out there and play this game. This game is awesome.
Super cool. I do have it installed on my PC and my Steam Deck, so I'm ready to go, playing throughout both of those systems. I'm still just kind of in the first dungeon. I think it's the cathedral area, and then I think that's the first time it, you know, here's a time limit, and then do your side quests and do your dungeon. So, kind of getting into it. It's gonna be pretty cool. And then I'm that's pretty much it. I mean, I shared my thoughts last week on the demo itself, so I think it's pretty solid overall. I'm curious about the vehicle and like going out to different places and having a time limit with that, but also you could do certain, I guess, side activities within
Well, I was gonna say
the
there's
ship.
a lot of stuff you can do on the ship because first of all, there are some follower requests that you can only do while you're traveling from one place to another. Like if you get to a certain point in, like if I'm leveling up with Stahl, who's one of the first characters you get, and I want to get like, I think from 4 to 5, like his level 4 to 5, essentially from you hanging out with him, you have to hang out with him on the ship while it's in transit.
Okay.
So
interesting.
There's certain, so you can hang out with your different confidants that way, but you can also level up your character's like royal virtues, well, like by reading or by doing stuff around the ship. Like you can do laundry, or you can mop up the ship and stuff like that. You'd also, if you've maxed out your royal virtues, you can also work on, you know, upping your HP, like your max HP or your max MP as well, just on the ship, just by doing certain things as well. So there are lots of things to do kind of while you're in transit. So I never felt bad, like being like, okay, well, I need to go, like, it's going to take 2 days to get to this side quest. And it feels like I'm going to waste those like, I never felt like I was wasting those 2 days on the way there because I had enough to do well on the ship to kind of like continue to level the character each day, essentially. Because it gives you 2 day slots as well, just like any other day, where you have a daytime and like a nighttime where everyone's kind of around a campfire, essentially.
Cool. And then how do you feel about the archetypes and all the different archetypes that you can mix together, but also inherent skills and mix around? It seems like a lot more versatile, especially with side characters.
Yeah, like the archetype system was really interesting because it was very different, obviously, from the Persona system. Because in the Persona games, the only person you can change your persona for is the main character. The other characters are kind of locked into whatever elemental types they have and whatnot. But this game, I love the flexibility with the archetypes, because even though, you know, they felt they didn't feel samey, I should say, but you felt like you were almost kind of making the same kind of party makeups throughout the game, because all the characters can learn all the different archetypes. I really just liked the flexibility of being able to customize your party however you want. So I never felt like I was taking certain party members along simply because of their elemental efficiency, or because and working with people I didn't want to work with. Like, I felt like I could bring the party of people that I just liked having in my party, that I could customize them a certain way. Obviously, though, certain characters are better for certain archetypes. Like, using Stahl as an example, he automatically levels his stats to be strength based. So he's going to be really good with the melee attacking classes. So like the warrior class, or some of the other melee attacking classes in the game. And he's like, you can make him a wizard if you want to, but he has like really terrible magic stats. So like, he's just going to do just naturally less magic damage than some of the other characters.
Does the game tell you that, or you kind of just observe that? You
just go into the stats menu and you can see that. Or every time your character levels, it'll show you how their points are being allocated. And likewise, your protagonist, you're actually adjusting the stats based on how you want them to be for the main character.
Got it.
Yeah, because it kind of gives you those options there. Let's see here, because there's a question from the chat from Skycatcher, who asks, how is the political theme / story? Is it fun, or is it more of a serious story? So there is some fun to the story for sure, but it is definitely more in the serious realm than something like Persona is. But I mean, Persona gets pretty serious at times as well.
Persona gets dark, man.
Yeah. And this game definitely kind of falls in that camp too, where it's kind of like the same kind of mix of fun and serious, but it does lean a little more in the seriousness than something like Persona does.
I'm curious how the story goes, because even the lore building in the beginning is kind of crazy. Yeah. Like, the fantasy story is interesting within itself, but all the different races and the different kingdoms, and then also the connection to our world and our reality, and how does that play in? It's pretty interesting. I really encourage people to play the demo and figure out what's the kind of the lore build of the first 5 hours or something like that, because it really does capture what the game, I guess, will step forth for the, with the remaining stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Because those are like the themes of fantasy and stuff like that, like really, really persist throughout the game in a really interesting way. And like all the payoff for some of that stuff too, Garrett. It's just, oh my God, it's so cool. So yeah, like I could talk about Metaphor for days. I love this game. I can't wait for you to play it, Garrett, because I think like we'll kind of save this conversation again for after you've finished it down the road.
For sure.
We'll come back and kind of have like a bigger discussion about Metaphor. But man, for those out there who are interested at all in Japanese role-playing games, like this is a slam dunk. Cool. Not only that, but like, I think on a game, like when I compare this to Persona 5, like I think that it's a much better game than something like Persona 5 is. Like
interesting.
The improvements they made to this cannot be understated. Like I feel like the way that they've crafted this formula, like I'm really interested to see what they do with a sequel to this actually.
How's the performance on Xbox? Is it pretty good?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Cool.
I will say that there are some moments in the open world that are like the frame rate can kind of be all over the place, because there's no selecting of graphics modes or anything like that. It's just one mode across the board. And this is no different if people play kind of Persona 5 as well. It's kind of like this as well, where the frame rate can kind of fluctuate a little bit, but for the most part, it stays pretty much at 60 for most of the game on Xbox.
Cool. That's good to know. I know there's been a weird performance issues on PC. I think they fixed it with the full game. Steam Deck, it seems to be fine. It kind of just hovers around 40 to 60, and then if there's a lot of assets loaded in, it's like it gets a little choppy, but it's still definitely playable. So, and I know I don't know dungeons later on, but when I was in the kind of the cave intro dungeon or whatever, it's pretty. It plays really well because there's just not a lot of loading graphics or anything like that. So
you're in a cave.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I'm just saying in comparison to, like, let's say the central city, that has like a lot of crowds and people. It gets a little choppy there, but
and the city is actually pretty big that you go to. Also, I will mention as well, the last thing I wanted to say was just I actually really enjoyed the fact that like the dungeons, aka the palaces in this game, I really like the fact that they're shorter kind of experiences, because similar to what you saw in the demo, Garret, this kind of persists throughout the game as well, where the actual timed dungeons are not crazy long like some of the ones in Persona 5 get, because like that was one of my criticisms for that game, was just how long. Like I remember, for example, Haru's dungeon, the palace where you get Haru, just feels like it goes on forever and ever and ever. Whereas I didn't feel like that at all with the dungeons in this game. Like I liked the fact that they felt more bite-sized this time around, because they also kind of do this thing that they did in the demo where you kind of have like almost like a smaller dungeon you go through, like the cave, and then you kind of have the timed dungeon. And they kind of do that throughout the rest of the game in this as well.
Are there optional dungeons as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like once you later in the game, when you finish the cathedral, the map opens up to you, and that's when you start getting to travel to the optional dungeons.
Cool.
Yeah, and the rewards are really good for the optional dungeons as well. Like they are worth doing. Like
cool.
Same with all the side quests too. So yeah, Metaphor.
Looking forward to it.
Fantastic game. Your metaphor looking metaphor to this game.
Metaphor.
I finally got there.
There we go.
With the pun I was trying to go with.
It was great.
Speaking of great games, Garret, it's now time for us to read from the sacred text.
32 minutes in.
32 minutes in. Look, it's fine. We had a beefy side quest this week. We had to talk about Canadian Thanksgiving. This is just what we're doing. But Garret, you have finished, or at least I'm assuming you finished.
I finished it. Yes.
You have finished Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1. It's part of Garrett's backlog adventure. So folks that are newer to the show that might not know this, on the show, we do something called Garrett's Backlog Adventure, where I will assign Garret a backlog game from Garrett's backlog that he has to play.
Yes.
And then we devote an episode to it.
Yes.
And this time around, I assigned him Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1. And before this episode's over, I will assign Garret his next game.
Ooh, I wonder what it is.
I wonder what it is, too. I've already have it picked out. I'm very excited about it. So let's talk about Final Fantasy VII.
Let's
we're going to do like spoilerish free talk to kind of start the show. But then we're gonna talk about spoilers for Final Fantasy VII. And I know what you're thinking, Garret. Why would we have to preface that we're going to talk about spoilers for a 25-year-old game? And the answer is, if we spoil things here for this game, it'll actually spoil stuff for Rebirth and Remake and the newest game coming out.
There's a lot of stuff in this game. So if you have not played Final Fantasy VII OG and you're into the new Final Fantasy VII games, you definitely don't want to listen to the spoilers.
Yeah, and ask why is asking. Wait, is this the original Final Fantasy VII? Yes. Garret actually played the original Final Fantasy VII for the first time, so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly. So let's get into it, Ryan. I think I want to let me get to what I like about this game.
Of course. Let's start with the positive, right?
The positives. And I just want to, preface that, this is an old RPG. It came out in 1997, came out on the PS1, one of the early PS1 games, right?
I don't know
or
if
is it?
I don't know if it's the early. It came out in 1997, so 2 years after the PlayStation.
2 years after.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What I like about Final Fantasy VII is the lore buildup and the themes around this game. It's definitely not like a traditional fantasy archetype, type of game. It's definitely leaning towards the future. It's leaning towards humanity sucking up the planet energy, and industrialization is terrible. Human activity is terrible. At the same time, there's some connection between humans and the planet as well, and all the various things. So I think that's a really cool thing about this game in particular compared to other RPGs I've played.
It also kind of dates the game a little bit, because these were things that echoed like real world concerns at the time. Like pollution was a really big thing around this time that people talked about a lot. Like, whereas Garrett, people still talk about pollution now, but I don't feel it's as nearly as much as the late 90s, early 2000s, where people used to talk about the ozone layer a lot and preserving the ozone layer.
The ozone layer is a very weird situation. I got into environmental engineering, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Pollution, yeah, it's not quite as talked about. It's more about global warming now as the issue, but it's kind of the same themes. It's human activity influencing the planet in some way. And then also, what are the depths of which humanity will go to in order to be selfish, in order to be beyond their like luxury and beyond power? I think there's this weird eternal festering for something greater, which I think is pretty cool to hear. Kind of that's the theme, at least from the Shinra in the headquarters over there. That's their whole spiel.
I was gonna say, yeah, they're just like, we need to suck up all the stuff from the planet, all the resources from the planet, so we can make money. Is essentially Shinra's whole deal. Pretty
much. John 32 asks, did we fix the ozone layer? We kind of did, yeah. And again, that's a very specific situation, and I'm not gonna go into that, but just overall theme: human pollution and human activity in general, still pretty rough. So I like that. I like the characters that I kind of pick up along the way. I like their personalities, especially, the original Cloud, Erickson, and Barrett, of course. But, all the other kind of required and optional side characters you get throughout the game. I made sure to get Vincent and Yuffie as well.
Yep, because you don't have to get them. In fact, the first time I played through the game, I didn't even know you could get those characters. So I finished the game for the first time without even having Yuffie or Vincent in my party at all.
Vincent, I almost missed. I was like, wait, how do I get Vincent? And then it's like, oh, you have to do this certain little thing. I'm like, okay, sounds good. I'll go through that. Yeah. And then I also did the Yuffie side quest as well. Okay. It's a completely different side quest, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Because the first time I had that happen, I'm like, because I didn't know that was the thing. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? Why have I lost all my stuff? Why am I going to this place I've never been to before?
I like how most throughout the game you go through their backstory as well, and like kind of their build up and their motivation to be in the party with Cloud. Spoiler alert, the whole kind of premise of this game is they're going after Sephiroth, this maniacal crazy villain that wants to destroy the planet. Let's just go with that.
Sephiroth.
Sephiroth. Yeah, but each of the characters like Sid and Red, is it 13? Right?
13,
yeah. They each have their own kind of upbringing or transformation. You go through their backstory. Really cool to hear all the different characters. The writing's really good. The interactions with the characters, I think it's top notch still. I would not change much of anything about the dialogue of this game. So
I was gonna say, the interesting thing about that, Garrett, as you talk about that, is that when you actually look at Rebirth or Remake, when they actually keep all that stuff, all that storytelling stuff the same as the OG game, like it really, really hits, and they do such a great job with it, and it just feels really fantastic to kind of see that play out in like with modern graphics as an example. But then when they kind of veer off that to tell unique stories, I'm like, that's where the story kind of falls apart. Rebirth or Remake.
Interesting.
Especially in particular Remake specifically, like where it's just like where they go off and try and do lore building in Midgar. Some of it works, but most of it just does not and falls on its face.
So that's what I like about the game, is the lore build up and the characters. It's stuff that's kind of middling to me. Let's just go with that. It's just like, it's outdated, so I'm not gonna fault the game too much with what it was at the time, because of course, if you make this game let's say recently or this year, of course they're gonna have some quality life improvements. So let's get into the combat. I think, this is a pretty traditional type of combat system in Final Fantasy, correct?
Yeah, like this is basically using the same combat system that goes all the way back to Final Fantasy IV.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's like there have been kind of minor tweaks between each iteration after 4, but for the most part, they're all kind of very similar.
I fundamentally don't care about this type of combat system, and I think it's just because there's not enough feedback of. For folks who don't know, it's a mix of timed and turn-based battling. It's more timed than anything.
Yeah.
Where
it's referred to as the active time battle system.
My goodness. But anyways, yeah, you kind of like have to make your actions pretty quick in order for the actions to actually go through before the enemy kind of decides what to do and like make certain actions as well during battling. And I don't care for that.
Well, I mean, Garrett, I don't know if you knew this in the options. There's an option to basically turn that off where the active time battle bar still fills up, kind of like the way it does, but it pauses the action if it gets to your character's like selection.
Oh, okay.
So that you can sit there and kind of deliberate what you want to do next, kind of thing.
That's nice. Well, I didn't turn on that option, but it's good to know that that's there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's that, and then also, I mean, it's pretty standard. You got your attack and you got your magic, and of course you got 3 characters in your party. So, and depending on which row you put them in, back row or front row, they get more hits or more damage. It's very standard RPG kind of mechanics there. Yeah, and then also random encounters. I know it's a thing during this era, but man, that's just so crazy. Just going through some of these maps and it's just like, all right, random encounter again. I'm just like, okay, sounds good.
At least the random encounters at this, Garrett, have to be better than the ones that from Lunar, the game I had you play before.
Oh, for sure.
Because like 100%. Lunar in particular, like you would literally take 2 steps and you would be in another random encounter. Whereas in this game, it was not nearly as egregious as that.
Yeah, pretty much. And then of course the materia system. I like the idea of the materia system in like on paper, but there was just too many times in this game where they force you to change characters in your party, and that drops a lot of materia out of your other characters, and you're gonna have to place them back in. And so for people who don't know, materia is they're the items throughout the game that you attach to your equipment in order to get any skills, any magic skills or summoning skills or anything like that.
Basically any skill besides attack, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. And then your ultimate skills too. Yeah, besides those two, that's how you kind of build up basically the character's like strategy or moveset essentially.
Yeah.
And then
it allows you to kind of like fully customize your characters as well, like in kind of the same way I talked about with Metaphor with the archetype system, where like you can kind of customize the party to be whatever you want the party to be without having to like take specific members with you.
Yeah. So question for you, Ryan, I did not find any difference like changing materials for different characters. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Where like if I have a certain materia configuration for one character, it's not gonna it'll be the same for another character per se.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then there's also progression with the materials. They kind of level up as you kind of use them or put them on characters throughout the game, which is again, it's kind of middling to me. I like a little bit more direction with my characters and having a skill build up. That's just a personal thing. I think. Yeah. So there's that.
Although I will say, I don't know if you noticed this, Garrett, with the materia themselves, like they assign different stats to your character as well. Like if you overload a character with magical materia, as an example, like spell materia, it'll then like really skew that character's stats towards magic, as an example.
Got it. Yeah. And the summon materia, they're red, which means that does that increase health points or something, or
it increases different, like multiple stats actually.
Multiple stats. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
they each do different things, which is interesting.
Yeah, because there's different colors. There's yellow, green, blue, and red, and
and purple.
And purple, yeah, and depending on which, it's kind of just different classes of materia too. There's a lot of them throughout the game. A lot of them you kind of get throughout the main story, but there's also a huge number you can miss.
Yep, it sure is. There's especially like there's secret materia towards the end of the game too that are like the most powerful materia that you just have to like go off the beaten path to find them.
Yeah, those are kind of the middling things. Also, just a shout out, really great thing, Sephiroth, a villain itself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite villain in the world, but it's kind of interesting to be in the mindset of Sephiroth and like what's his motivation throughout the game.
Right.
He seems pretty static though. He doesn't once he kind of flips, he's just like, all right, I'm here to do my thing. I was
gonna say, like, one of the things I liked about Final Fantasy VII, Garret, when I first played it, was the fact that there were multiple villains. Like like Sephiroth is kind of like the main villain, but for 2/3 of the game, the main villain isn't really Sephiroth. It's actually either President Shinra, like Rufus, or Hojo. Like those are kind of like the two kind of like main villains until like Sephiroth really like comes back into the story later in the game, kind of thing.
Yes, the Hojo and the president of Shinra are big enemies, and you have to defeat one of them near the end. So yeah, it's a pretty I agree with that. Those are kind of sub villains. I was also kind of taken aback. What's the relationship of the party and Shinra itself? Because they're against Shinra, but there's just a lot of kind of different crossing paths as they kind of like find Sephiroth as well.
Well, because they're essentially looking for Sephiroth too, or they're also trying to find the Promised Land by kind of following they assume the party's going to kind of lead them to the Promised Land, essentially.
Anyways, so just away from that. So one more thing is the summon materia. I love the summoning animations themselves. Yeah. Super dope.
They were so over the top and cool back in the day, especially like playing those like that for the first time and seeing like the Neo Bahamut one, for example. Like there were some really, really cool ones, and they play out. They take forever to play out too. Like you can't skip them. So
no, you cannot skip them. You have to go through the whole thing, and then of course it's like a major attack or whatever. So, pretty cool to see. What I'm trying to think of anything else that's combat wise.
Right. Yeah, I think you kind of touched most of the combat stuff.
Of course, there's equips, and you can get more equips. I like how there's certain equipment items that either have a normal or double kind of experience rate for the materia. So you can get equipment that are like, let's say, double the rate, but maybe the stats themselves are less than like an equipment that just has a normal kind of growth of the materia. So there's kind of an exchange there. There's at one point there were a line of weapons that had no materia slots on it, but the stats were insane, like much higher. So it's cool to see all the differences there for sure.
Yeah, they give you a lot. The one thing you can say is the game gives you a ton of options to kind of play around and kind of do what you want with and progress the characters how you want to, which is really cool.
Okay.
But Garret, I'm so excited for you to talk about mini games, because that's the main thing is talking about mini games.
Oh, that's the stuff that I don't really care for at all. Okay, so you got For Condor, which is the first thing. It's totally rigged, by the way. It's one of the most rigged mini games I've ever played. Because if you put you kind of place your enemies near your home base, you're gonna have a bad time. Because it's just gonna be unlimited enemies spawning from below. So the strategy is put your soldiers as close to the enemy position as possible and just be aggressive. Just be super aggressive, and then as long as you're always aggressive, near the enemy side, you're going to win the game, basically. So there's that. And then, of course, the golden saucer.
Some great music, Garrett.
This is some fantastic music. I don't know if I doubt I played all different types of games. So there's just short little mini games here and there, like some of them are just button prompts and like skee ball or basketball or whatever, right?
Yeah, but then you can replay the mini games from the actual game
right
in there as well for GP once you actually experience them in the story.
Got it. Yeah, and then there's the chocobo race.
Yep,
which is pretty interesting.
You can race chocobos for money there. By the way, Garrett, speaking of the gold saucer, before you move on, I don't know if you knew this, but in Final Fantasy XIV, one of my favorite games of all time, of course, they recreated the gold saucer, and you can go there and play a bunch of mini games for GP that you can earn like a bunch of different rewards and stuff with it. And I just love sometimes just going there for hours, just randomly hanging out in the gold saucer and doing a bunch of silly mini games, and also hoping I'll win the lottery at some point, because there's a lottery you can enter at the gold saucer to win a lot of in-game currency.
I'm sure it's better mechanically wise than in Final Fantasy VII.
Not by much.
Not by much. Oh, okay.
Not by much, but the music's still the same, which of course is the best part.
Of course, it's the best part. Anyways, yeah. So there's the snowboarding minigame, the chocobo race. I just was not gravitated with these minigames at all. Yeah. I don't want to play them. I just want to get through the game. So I'm sure it was kind of cool at the time.
No, I kid, but I think they're also the worst.
Okay, good. Yeah, they're just not fun.
I also love too that like really informed the design of something like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Garrett, where they're like, cool, so people thought the minigames were okay to bad from the original game, so let's just double down on minigames and have just so many minigames, like there's over 100 different types of minigames in Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, that's so bad.
Which is more than the latest Mario Party game.
That's crazy. That's just crazy to hear that they really double down on it. But anyways, it worked because people love Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I guess. I don't know.
People like it, but not for the minigames.
I guess not for the minigames. Yeah, that's one part I did not care for, is the minigames. The snowboarding was so hard to control. It's like comically bad.
Yep.
The chocobo race was fine. It wasn't like so terrible, but yeah. But anyways, away from that, I think I want to go through stuff I think it's outdated, and like it was pretty rough to play this game.
Okay.
First off is I think I just kind of missed it or whatever. It's the items. The items themselves, once you're in battle, there's no description of what they do at all. Like, so if I have a character confused or sleeping or poison or whatever, I have no idea which item.
You better remember what that item was called to get rid of confused, or else you'll be very sad.
I literally have to put it on a spreadsheet or something in order to remind myself what that is. So there's that. What else? Yeah, again, I just told you about the combat system. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I don't know when the enemies are going to come in. Okay, the enemies are attacking now, but I need to figure out what I need to do. And then the items themselves, it's really hard to scroll.
Yep.
Down.
Yeah, because it's only like a little box. And you only have a certain number of them that appear at the time, and you have to scroll through it.
It's a tiny box. So let's say, like your character is down, you have to put a phoenix down in there. It's like, okay, I got to scroll all the way down unless you arrange your items beforehand. Yep. To make sure that your field items are at the top. It's just those kinds of things. I'm sure that if they kind of did this enhanced edition of this game, it would be they would fix those type of things, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that just goes all the way back to the Super Nintendo era, because when you look at, go back and play something like Final Fantasy IV as an example, which is, I'm comparing that game to this game a lot, because A lot of the design elements from Final Fantasy IV still exist in that game, and that's kind of exactly how that game is set up too. It has literally the exact same kind of item menu with having to rearrange the items and everything, and it kind of appears the same way in battle as well, where you don't get to see what the items actually do. But it'll explain it out of battle if you want.
Yeah, out of battle you're good, and then once you're in battle, have fun. Good luck. I think it's this game, especially towards the end, if you're not doing certain things right, leveling up your characters, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yep.
You're gonna have a really bad time. It might get to the point where you just have to grind somewhere, or you have to change up your materia system. But I really got to the end of this game, Ryan.
Yeah.
I played the Switch version, which I can put in unlimited health and
which is the same as every version except the PC version, I believe.
Oh, really? You can do that in the original?
No, sorry, I meant not the original. I mean like all the remastered versions. So
I see.
PlayStation, Xbox, Switch.
Got it.
They're all like that.
I had to put that in there for the last area because there was literally monsters instant killing me, all three.
Yep.
At the same time. So, but I kind of figure out like which kind of materials and how to level up my characters, which is fine. The worst part is on the last area too, I did not have any Phoenix Downs. There was no way to go back to an item shop unless I load a previous save.
Or go all the way back up, because you can leave the crater.
Oh, you can leave the crater. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
you just have to go. You just have to go back up the stairs, and then you go back to the airship. Because like the idea is like, and I think that they kind of designed this intentionally a little bit, is that like you're supposed to grind in this area a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Be able to go back and forth. Because when you go back to the ship, you can actually just rest your allies and have them go fully back to full MP and HP again. But you can also again leave the airship, go do other stuff, because when you go to the final place in Final Fantasy VII, you also it also unlocks a bunch of other stuff in the world that you can go collect as well, which is totally optional. But you have to wait until that point to go do it. So you're not locked in when you go down there.
I see.
So they want you to do some of that stuff or grind a little bit before you go through the final boss kind of thing.
I don't know why it made me feel like I was stuck there. I think it was the story itself was like, oh, the ship is crashing down or something. And so they were stuck there. I think that's why. Anyways.
But there is like a point in the game, Garrett. There is one area that like one dungeon you go to in disc 1 where you go to the dungeon, but you can't leave and you're stuck there. There is one that where you're stuck in there, and if you haven't grinded enough or got enough like Phoenix Downs or something like that, if you run out of that stuff, you basically have to reset the game and hope you have a save before you went to that place.
Wow.
Because there is one where it's just like you can't leave and you're stuck there. Because like that happened to me the first time I played it, where I didn't know that I was going to be stuck there. So when I wanted to leave and go get more stuff, I couldn't, and I didn't have enough materials to get through it. So I basically had to start over. Like start the game over.
That's rough. It's really rough.
Because it wasn't like the Switch version or the modern version where you could have, invincibility mode on or whatever to get through it.
Yeah, I just kind of said screw it and put invincibility mode just to go through the story. Like the thing is, I understand how this game works, so I just didn't want to waste more hours or time to
No, you were ready for it to be over, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think so too. I didn't do a lot of the optional things as you mentioned at the end. I kind of read into it.
We'll talk about it when we get to spoilers.
Which was pretty interesting. I think the other thing that just I did not care for this game, and I think it's a lot of RPGs, so I'm not saying it's Final Fantasy VII specific, is the lack of direction. It's like kind of like you have to kind of talk around in order to figure out, is there some sort of hint or clue to go next. That was kind of, there's a lot of, like last third of the game, there's a lot of backtracking involved as well, going to different places, doing different things. I literally had a video guide and a written guide kind of just like guiding me where I was like, I am straight up lost and I don't know where to go. But I think again, that's more of a RPG in the 90s.
Yeah,
than
like that's
anything.
just old school game design. We've talked about it multiple times because we talked about it with Lunar. We talked about it with, other, backlog games have had you play. Like that's just game design for the time. And you kind of like back then it wasn't so weird because all the games were doing that. So you just assumed you were supposed to have to talk to everybody to figure out where to go next.
But yeah, I think just there's a lot of things in this game that can be improved so much now compared to other RPGs in the 90s.
Yeah.
That because I think of Lunar, I think of Shining Force. They're old and like, it's kind of, you kind of have to write around, but they're pretty linear.
Right.
They're pretty straightforward. Their combat is pretty easy once you get the hang of what the combat is. Whereas in Final Fantasy VII, there's multiple right answers and there's a lot of optional things involved, and it's a very open area, especially once you get the ship and you can fly around. It's a very open game as well. So yeah, I think I wish, they would do some sort of Final Fantasy VII enhanced edition of some kind where it's like literally like Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time on the 3DS, where it's just here's the game in it again in its original fashion, maybe a little touch up on like updated assets or whatever, but overall it's the same game, but just updated mechanics, updated balancing issues, like you can, it's just easier for the player to go through. I think that would be a really cool thing to do. I know they probably won't do it.
Well, funny you say that, Garrett, because when we first started hearing that a remake for Final Fantasy VII might be happening, like that's exactly what I wanted from a Final Fantasy VII remake. Was that what you just described was what I wanted them to do? Like take the game with like the original game, with add modern graphics to it, and then still have it play out kind of the same way, but then with little tweaks and enhancements to the gameplay. Like that's exactly what I wanted Final Fantasy VII remake to be, and instead they did this whole other thing, and it made me really sad. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I've talked about it before, but I don't mind the two remake games that we've gotten, and I'm excited for the third game. But it's just like it's not what I, someone who really enjoyed Final Fantasy VII, wanted it to be. Because what you're describing, Garrett, is exactly what I wanted them to do with remake, and why we were asking for a remake of it in the first place, was to do something like that. So, like that's why it's just like it was almost like a monkey paw wish in a lot of ways, Garrett. We're like us Final Fantasy VII stands. We were asking for a remake of Final Fantasy VII because you're right. Of all the things you talk about, it's a game that just hasn't mechanically aged that well, but the story is aged really well, and there are a lot of great things about it that have aged well, and with some like minor tweaks to it, and with a new coat of paint, I think it would look and play great. But the fact that they kind of like twisted it on its head, and it's like, well, be careful what you wish for, you might just get it, and we certainly got it with the remake games.
Yeah, certainly a very different aspect. It's more of a, I mean, it's a remake, but it's more like a reimagination of some kind.
It is, because it's almost like a weird like meta sequel to the original game.
That's what I hear.
Weird.
Yeah.
I mean, they strayed a lot more away from that stuff in Rebirth, which is one of the reasons why I think I actually really enjoyed Rebirth. But it's still like whenever they do introduce that like multi-universe stuff, I'm just like, come on, guys, what are we doing here? Like, not everything has to be like the multiverse stuff from the Marvel universe, okay?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's interesting. Anyways, that's pretty much, I think, my closing thoughts on the non-spoilery stuff.
Okay. Well, one question I'm going to get to from Nagachaka first, because we didn't mention this at all, so I wanted to get to it. Nagachaka asks, which game has the better soundtrack? Final Fantasy VII, the OG from PlayStation 1, or Final Fantasy VII Remake/Rebirth? Yes, they are one full experience, according to Nagachaka. Also, you finished Metaphor ReFantazio already. Watch out, Kevin Ainsworth. Because, first of all, Garrett, what did you think about the music in this game?
Oh, I love the music. It's a very, very nice. I thought it really set the tone of what Final Fantasy VII actually is, and even though it's like chiptune type of style on PS1, right, I was very surprised how well it really captured the game. So I would say, Final Fantasy VII PS1, it's a pretty great soundtrack. That being said, it had a lot of potential to being orchestrated, in orchestral versions of those games in Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, and those are bangers.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
There are some good ones, but I will say that I think the remake soundtrack is more hit or miss than the original soundtrack.
I see.
But man, you listen to the Airbuster theme just a little bit, and you're just like so pumped up for that boss fight. Oh my god, it's so cool. But something like Genova, like I love Genova's theme from the original game, but like the music that you hear when you fight Genova in like the modern game, like in the remake games, like feels a lot more generic until like it kind of brings in the music from the original game. And even then I'm just like, I'd rather just listen to the Genova theme from the original.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, there's little things like that just I actually think work better in the original game. But
Cool.
Yeah. Anyways, Garrett, it's now time to dip into spoilers. I am now putting up the spoiler warning if you're watching the video version. Audio listeners as well, I have time-stamped this. So you can go ahead and just skip to the end of the episode if you would like. If you don't want to hear about spoilers for Final Fantasy VII. Because again, it's not so much that we're spoiling Final Fantasy VII, the OG, but this will subsequently spoil stuff from the next 3 games. So just be aware, spoilers are about to happen in 3, 2, 1. Garrett, how did you feel? Or actually, first spoiler question, who'd you go on the date with?
I went on a date with Tifa, I think.
Okay. Because you went to because when you go to the Golden Saucer and you're about to go to the Temple of the Ancients.
Sorry. I went on a date with Eris, actually.
Okay.
Over there. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. For sure.
Okay, because that is random. Or I shouldn't say it's random. It's set up based on the choices you make throughout the game.
Okay.
Because sometimes you'll like a very easy example is like early on in the game, if you get the flower from Eris in Midgar, you can then choose to give it to Tifa or give it to Marle instead. And if you give it to Tifa, you get points towards Tifa going on the date with her. Or if you get to the like Barrett's daughter, you get negative points towards Tifa.
Interesting.
Because Garrett, I don't know if you knew this, but did you know that you could go on a date with Barrett?
No, I did not know that.
You can go on a date with Barrett.
That's cool.
Yeah, because like you could go on a date with any of the female characters at that point. So Aerith, Tifa, or Yuffie. But you can also go on a date with Barrett. And the way to go on a date with Barrett is you have to be mean to all 3 of the girls, and to basically make them hate you. And then you go on the date with Barrett's just like knocks on yours like, hey, you want to hang out?
Like, that's funny.
You just go on like a date merry-go-round date with Barrett. Oh my god, it's very
that's
silly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I think I had a date with Eris.
Yeah.
And then the decisions I did not really particularly focus in on or as much, but
because it's also an old game too. You wouldn't think your choices actually would matter, but they do in this case.
Yeah, I remember there was one. Yeah, like one of the first flashbacks that you do with Cloud, with Nibelheim.
Yeah.
You kind of can go into Tifa's room.
Yeah.
And then in Tifa's room, you can basically kind of mess around with stuff. And then Tifa's like, did you actually do that? Did you do this? And
did
then
you go to my room and play my piano?
I opened the drawer.
Oh my god.
And found the underwear. And Tifa's like, you actually did that? And it's like, no, just kidding. That type of deal. So.
I'm going to mildly spoil. Do you mind if I mildly spoil something with that moment for Rebirth, Garrett?
Sure.
You can do all those same things in Rebirth too.
Oh, okay. That's cute.
You can go find the underwear, or you can play the piano, or do all that stuff. And Tifa kind of reacts the same way, and it's very funny.
So yeah, there's that. Yeah, it's decisions were fine. Of course, there were some big moments in the game, especially later on, that I had no idea. So let's first. I just want to talk about Genova itself, and I want because there's a lot of exposition of this thing, whatever this thing is.
It's an alien from space. That's what Genova is.
Okay, it's an alien from space, but it was originally explained to us that it was Sephiroth's mother.
Right.
But it actually wasn't Sephiroth's mother. It was some sort of alien that Hojo, I guess, discovered.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Because it came from space from a meteor, and Hojo found the meteor, discovered it, and then extracted using the cells from Jenova. First of all, to kind of rebuild her, but then also to infuse Sephiroth with.
Yes.
Sephiroth think that Jenova was his mother.
Yeah. So there's that, the Jenova thing. It was the weirdest thing first seeing Jenova in the Shinra headquarters. That image was so creepy. I was out of a horror film.
Yeah.
Seeing that, so I thought that was pretty interesting. And then of course I want to talk about Sephiroth's kind of click. Like when he came, he was just originally, a in soldier. He was a leader of some kind, very powerful person. That's for the Shinra headquarters or whatever. But then something snapped with him when he was starting to read all the books, all the ancient history, and he felt that he finally found his place. First, I think he originally thought he was an ancient, but then he figured out that he thinks of himself as more than that. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
And then
he also discovered
crazy.
too he was like grown in a lab, and that's kind of the thing that kind of sets him off as well.
Right. He was grown in a lab as well, and then but I think his goal was the same thing. Is like, I'm gonna hurt the planet as much as I can, so I can consume all that energy and release it, right? Like to his own.
Like basically absorb the energy and kind of become like a god being, essentially.
Yeah. So I thought that was one big point, I think, of the story that caught my attention was Sephiroth's kind of switch. Mm-hmm. Of course, you go throughout. Of course, I mean, there's Barrett's kind of upbringing. I thought that was pretty interesting to hear his kind of decision on being part of Avalanche and being in Midgar.
Yeah.
What was his original mining town? Basically.
Yeah. I love when you go there, and just his whole kind of quest line is really cool.
I think so too. I think he has a level of guilt behind him when he goes back to that town.
Yeah.
There's many different scars because that town is ruined basically, and he thinks it's his fault.
Well, they also blame him for it too, as well. Like he's kind of like an exile essentially from the town.
Pretty much. And then there's also Red 13 with the canyon place or whatever. Cosmo Canyon, yeah. I thought that was a pretty cool storyline as well. I really like Sid's story.
He's like an astronaut. He's just building a rocket ship to go to space, but like his wife is in like the engine room, and he doesn't want to take off and murder her.
Yeah, he doesn't want to take off and murder her. I didn't know they were a husband and wife.
Sorry, no, they weren't husband and wife. I misspoke.
Oh, okay, yeah, they're just it's just like his assistant or whatever.
Yeah,
but I think there is some
there's romantic stuff there. That's why.
Yeah, tension, interaction with that. But Sid's like he seems like a very aggressive, very I wouldn't say jerk, but he was just like, I am rambunctious. I am, very forward with his decisions, that type of personality, which I thought was interesting. I think Vincent's character, it's not really revealed so much. He's a very quiet man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say too, you just don't get a lot of character building for Sid in particular.
You don't until the very end. You get a little bit more, but you're right. There's not much character building with Sid specifically. Yeah.
I mean, Yuffie and Vincent are kind of the same way too, in a way where like you get little glimpses into their past, and especially like through Yuffie's side mission, you get to learn more about her. But for the most part, those three characters in particular, I always found like you just don't learn as much about them, or even something like Kate Sith as well. Where like it wasn't
Kate Sith
even
was
really
weird, man.
Who Kate Sith actually is until the end, which is
he was a spy for Shinra, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but then he's working with the team.
He works on the board of directors for Shinra, but he goes in there to kind of spy on the team, but he's actually someone who he wants to defect from Shinra, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I thought that was weird too. But Yuffie's side quest was pretty interesting. I don't know if you went through that spiel.
Oh yeah. In fact, I loved the idea where it's like you have to do this entire side quest without materia, and good luck.
That was hard, man. That was a very difficult thing to do. To go through all the enemies and then of course figuring out where Yuffie is, all in these hidden spots. The Turks are there as well. Turks was another interesting side, I guess you could say, rogue third party type of deal going on. I actually did not fight the Turks at the end. You had the option to fight them or not fight them.
Right.
And because I did the Yuffie side story, I was like, yeah, we don't need to fight. That type of deal.
You don't need to fight Reno or Rude for the 8 millionth time in the game, because you fight them a lot.
Yeah, you do fight them a lot, or they like send you bosses that that you have to fight or something like that. So
yeah,
I thought that was interesting. But the Turks are not really, like, they're just kind of.
No, I like how they expand on them a lot more in the other Final Fantasy VII games, like Crisis Core. You learn a lot more about the Turks because they're actually a big part of the story. And then in Rebirth, they expand a lot more on the Turks too.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're done with characters here. Let's go to the big thing. Eris dies.
Yes. Like at the end of disc 1. That's how disc 1 ends. Is with Eris getting.
That's
murdered.
a cliffhanger.
And then you're having this sad moment, and then suddenly Jenova comes out of nowhere, and you've got a Jenova boss fight with the Eris theme playing in the background.
Oh, I thought that was hardcore, man. Going through that very an emotional thing where Sephiroth basically put a sword through Eris and all that business. So, anyways, yeah, Eris dies. I was like, oh, okay.
I was gonna say
happens.
That blew people's minds back in the day when that actually happened. Because like no one expected that to be a thing.
I didn't expect it to be a thing too.
Like the big spoiler now.
Yeah, I didn't. I think I knew that was gonna happen only because I just heard someone saying probably years ago. But yeah, actually seeing it happen and how it unfolded, I was like, oh, it happens right there, and it's not even close to the end of the game. No, it's like halfway through.
Halfway through. And yeah, that's kind of the same place where Rebirth kind of leaves off, in case you're wondering.
I see.
It's like that section. But what was actually more interesting, Garrett, was kind of you reaching out to me with then what happened next with Cloud's character.
Oh gosh,
which was really interesting. Like, because I almost feel like from your reaction, I almost think you actually we've been more blown by the fact that Cloud's actually a clone of Sephiroth, or at least that's what they tell you at the time. Yeah,
so that's blowing my mind too. And then how Cloud basically, well, did he? Yeah, he went into the live stream or something. I don't know.
He fell into the live stream, and then basically is like paralyzed for
paralyzed
big
from
chunk
it
of disc 2.
Yeah, so, and then Cloud, of course, he has all his memories jumbled up and everything, and then quickly clarified. What's the guy's name? Alex, the original.
Oh no, Zach.
Zach, sorry, that's that. Yeah, so Zach was actually the person that was the sidekick of Sephiroth.
Yeah.
In that mission to Nibelheim, and Cloud was actually the one of the soldiers, just
he's
regular
just one
soldier.
Of the soldier off to the side, essentially, which is interesting when they finally reveal that, Garrett, where then you look back, it plays back moments from that section where like that particular soldier is the one that protects Tifa, telling her not to go into the reactor when she wants to go in after Zack and Sephiroth, or like is the one that actually saves her at the end of that whole experience where like Zack gets defeated by Sephiroth and Cloud is the one that actually saves Tifa in that moment and instead of Zack.
Yeah. I thought that all that was interesting.
Now, Garrett, on that same storyline, did you go back to the Shinra mansion and see the optional cutscene that explains why Cloud had memories of Zack?
I did not. I did not see that. No.
So in the Shinra basement, if you go back there after after disc 2 ends, if you interact with kind of, because I don't know if you remember, but in the basement in the Shinra mansion where all the books were, where Sephiroth was reading, there's like these 2 tanks that are there. And if you go and touch one of the tanks, it then plays this whole cutscene that explains that in the 2 tanks after the Nibelheim battle, basically Cloud and Zack, the reason they're alive after being both slashed by Sephiroth and getting medical attention was Hojo and the team at Shinra had picked them up and basically brought them to these tanks to recover. But Hojo performed experiments on both Zack and Cloud during that moment, which is why Cloud even has like the Mako in his eyes to indicate that he's a soldier. Because remember, he wasn't actually in Soldier; he was a Shinra soldier. But but everyone assumed he was part of Soldier because he had the Mako in his eyes. Yeah, and that was from that moment because Hojo was experimenting with like shared memories between the 2 of them, until eventually Cloud and Zack escape from that facility, and they kind of like go on the road to Midgard, but Cloud is suffering from this illness that kind of prevents him, similar to when he falls into the live stream. So he's not able to talk or anything like that, and Zack's basically just talking to him and telling him about what his dream is, and like he's going back to Midgard to go see his girl era.
Interesting.
And it actually gets really sad because once they finally get to Midgard, just outside the city, like Zack, the Shinra soldiers are trying to catch up and kill Zack and Cloud for being traitors to Shinra, essentially. Or at least Hojo is painted that way once they escape the facility. So Zack is actually gunned down by the Shinra soldiers and killed. And that's how Cloud, basically after he sees witnesses like Zack getting killed by the Shinra soldiers, he kind of snaps out of his thing, picks up Zack's sword, like cuts them down, and then he makes his way to Midgard on his own from there. And that's how he then ends up in that section where Tifa kind of sees him at the subway station. And
that's interesting.
And he thinks he's like a soldier member because again he's infused with Zack's memories, so he's just it's all jumbled but in his brain, and he doesn't know what's real and what's not real.
And so I have a question for you. So is Cloud not actually a clone of Sephiroth?
No, he's not.
Okay, so that was just kind of a twist up, but then I remember going through Tifa's memories with Cloud. They were actually childhood friends.
They actually were, because that was the thing, because like he thought the memories were implanted because he was told by Hojo that he was a clone of Sephiroth, but he's not. He was like, that was what Tifa's memories were trying to reveal, is that he's actually not a clone of Sephiroth. He was a real person. He just didn't remember who he was because of all the experiments from Hojo.
I see. And that optional cutscene is pretty important then.
Yeah,
the one that you explained, because I would never have made that connection. I thought Zack was just like, I thought he was just gone. He was dead from that the interaction with Sephiroth, but I guess that's not the case. Okay.
No, and in fact, actually, that's one of the cool things about Crisis Core, is Crisis Core goes into that whole thing. Like, you actually get to play out that moment in real time.
Okay.
But also, like, you get to see that Cloud and Zack, on the way there, were buddies, like, on the way to Nibelheim, because you even see them a little bit in the game. If you go all the way back and remember kind of Cloud's first retelling of them going to Nibelheim for the first time, and they're riding in the truck together, like, he's talking to that soldier who Cloud actually is in that cutscene. So it's interesting that they kind of plant seeds for that kind of, if you look back at, like, if you know all this stuff and go back and replay the game, you see it completely differently, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And of course, it's interesting of Aeris's kind of origins as well, as a daughter of an ancient human, and then also befriended with a scientist that was in the Gaia Cliffs, and that's how Eris was born. And then going through how to escape from Hojo and the evil scientist. It was a Gast. That was the scientist's name.
Yep.
Gast, yeah. So yeah, that was another thing. The ancients was still pretty nebulous. Like you just kind of don't know what they are, who they are. They were just, they're the ancient intelligent beings that inhabited the planet.
Because at some points in the story, they kind of want you to think that like Jenova herself was an ancient, but she's not. Right. She's just a being from outer space. Right. But actually, the ancients are just like an ancient race of humans that lived in this world that have like special abilities. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But they're not. The two are not intrinsically tied together, despite the fact that at some points they want you to think that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's. I think that's overall what I wanted to talk about. Sure. So thank you for clarifying on some stuff. Yeah. Did
you also, last question I have for you, did you fight the weapons at all?
I did fight all the weapons.
Even the optional ones?
I don't know if I did the optional one. I did the 4 and went through those.
Yes, because that's the thing. Like ruby weapon in the desert is one of the optional ones, and then
I did not do that one.
Emerald weapon is swimming around the ocean.
I remember seeing that, yes, down below, but I did not fight the optional weapons then, I think.
Yeah, because you kind of need like the special materia, like the Knights of the Round materia, which is like the most powerful materia in the entire game.
I see, yeah.
In order to beat those. Because Knights of the Round is like a all-time classic summon from that game, where you have like literally all 13 Knights of the Round table come out and just murder your enemy at like one at a time. It's so cool.
So interesting.
Like it's such a visually cool summon. That then I loved the fact that they actually brought that back for Final Fantasy 14, where one of the end boss of Heaven's Ward is the Knights of the Round from Final Fantasy VII, which is just so freaking cool.
Interesting. Yeah. I'll have to check that out like in a video or something. But no, I did not do so much on the optional stuff that I think I understand now why the last area is so difficult. Right.
But you could also, with all the optional stuff, Garrett, if you can get a materia that's called Mimic, and what it does is it basically mimics the last action of your last party member, and then there's another special materia you can get that's 3 times multiplier. So you basically, what you can do.
Oh my goodness!
You can chain together Knights of the Round, the summon, because there's only one Knights of the Round materia, so you can only have it on one character, and it's not a materia that multiplies at all. You can only have one of it, but you can chain it together so that you can have your characters do like a mimic circle where it attacks the enemy 13 times with Knights of the Round if you use it once.
Oh my goodness.
It's some of the most ridiculous, overpowered stuff in any video game, where it literally one-shots the final boss.
I love it. I love it. I love that type of stuff. Yeah, but I think the materia system, again, it's cool in concept. I don't think the game really shows you how to do so much with the materia common. I did basic stuff, but like stuff like that, I just like, I wouldn't get that. But
yeah. Because, you really only need to dive into that stuff really deep when you fight the Ruby and Emerald weapon in particular, because, like, those bosses are like 10 times more powerful than the final bosses. Like, Emerald weapon has over 1 million hit points. So, and not only that, there's a timer on that battle, too, where you have to beat it in 20 minutes because you're in the ocean and you're going to run out of air. Is the lore or whatever. So, you basically have to, like, if you don't, like, cheese it a little bit with Knights of the Round. Like, if you don't have that materia at all, you can't beat those bosses. And Ruby weapon has like 15 million hit points and can only be attacked. And you can only have one party member fight him. Wow. So it's a ridiculous boss.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. And of course, Sephiroth, that's the final boss. I like his summon enemy skill that's like from outer space, and there's all the mathematical equations going on, and
it's just so over the top and ridiculous. It's so cool though. And like they actually went over the top like that too with like Final Fantasy VIII and the subsequent games as well. And in fact, when they brought back some optional bosses from in Final Fantasy XIV, like a raid boss, they actually do that again, where like the boss will do like an attack and it's like bringing out the math equations, and then there's a meteor that flies by and the earth blows up, and it's goodness. And it's just like, you took 900 damage from that attack. It's so silly.
My gosh.
But I love that they did like a callback like to the old classic Final Fantasy games.
But anyways, that's pretty much it on my end. I think it's a great game in terms of story and going through the characters, but man, there's a lot of quality of life things that would make it a much better user experience during these times, during these because we get so many good, great indie RPGs that does that. So
Right. Yeah. Cool. Well, I've officially taken down the spoiler banner, Garrett, and so audio listeners who want to skip spoilers are now finally returning. The main reason why I want to point that out is one, even though it's the end of the show, Garrett, before we go,
yes,
you have to find out what you're playing next.
Yes.
So, it is my understanding, Garrett, you are a Game Pass Ultimate member, correct?
I am.
Cool.
Correct.
So, I have decided that I am not going to make you play a super old game.
Oh, okay.
You're going to play an old game, though.
Okay.
Just not super.
Sounds good.
Because this game, I think, is actually coming up on 20 years old, but it's not quite there yet. Because it's an Xbox 360 game, Garrett.
Okay.
You are going to play Mass Effect 1.
Oh.
You are playing Mass Effect because I will not sit here and let this injustice go by any further, any longer. I will not be on a podcast with you a minute longer without you at least playing Mass Effect 1 at some point. So that is the next game. And what I'm going to say, when I say Mass Effect 1, I mean downloading the Mass Effect Legendary Edition and playing Mass Effect 1.
Cool. That sounds great.
It's up to you if you want to play the other two after that, Garrett. But I want you to at least play Mass Effect 1.
Okay. That sounds good. I'll do it.
Also, it's fairly short. So you can get through it, like, even if you 100% it, that's a 20 to 30 hour game.
Cool.
If you 100% it.
Sounds good. I have it on Steam Deck. I have it on Xbox. So I have my choices here.
Yeah. But yes, I would say specifically Legendary Edition, don't play the OG Mass Effect. I think the OG Mass Effect is fine, but the improvements that they make in Legendary Edition just make it so much more of a playable experience.
For sure.
Especially if it's your first time. So there you go.
Cool, man.
We'll talk about Mass Effect in the future whenever you have time to play it down the road, Garrett.
Of course.
I'm excited. I'm excited to hear what you have to say about Mass Effect at some point. Because all of us will be playing Dragon Age the Veilguard, Garrett. But you'll be you gotta get caught up by playing these Mass Effect games first.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
There you go. Well, anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of the RPG Cave. But before we go, we got to say thank you to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/carpoolgaming, starting with our ultimate producers, Jonathan Brown, the man behind the music on the PlayStation Drive and the Xbox Drive. You can check out his link tree over at linktr.ee/pme.jib for all of his music over at Purple Monkey Entertainment. Please make sure to go check that out. Cwagmire, who humbly reminds you the best babes are in fact Xenobabes. And TechMike, who says, whether you're Kevesi or a Agnian, you're a Xenobabe at heart. Links to all of our ultimate producers can always be found in the description of our podcast. Please make sure to support them as they support us, and they're really awesome. Our platinum producers, Smokin Joe, The Captain, Tim Paullin, and Solo, and our gold members, Adam K, Anna, Awesome Dave 1337, BobLoblaw, Brad Moore, Brian Reese, Cecily Carrozza, Dan Luma, Dannohh, Drellesh, Emily O'Kelly, Hoppel, Yum32, Liger Woods 330. I almost said Tiger Woods 330. OldMrFrump, Patrice Mallette, Peje, Shane Erickson, TheDonRob, the Jiggy Collector, and Toxic. Huge thank you once again to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/carpoolgaming. If you want to hop in the car with us, head on over there. Choose the tier that's right for you. And now Garrett, plugs go.
You can follow me at Twitter at Blind Explosion. You can also find me on the Discord. I'm reading every single one of your messages. And yes, I'll dive into Mass Effect 1. I actually did play maybe 2 or 3 hours a couple years ago, but I'm going to fresh restart. I'm going to take it from the beginning. I'm debating Steam Deck or Xbox. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. Yeah. If I might make a recommendation, Garrett.
Yes.
You are not required to do this if you do not. We would prefer not to do this. But my recommendation also is you play as Femme Shep when you play it.
Okay.
Female Shepherd.
Okay.
Because even though you have the choice of male Shepherd or female Shepherd, and maybe you prefer male characters, trust me, Femme Shep is the way to go. And you'll understand why when you play it.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Looking forward to it.
As for me, you can find me on Twitter at X at Ryan Tiffin. God, I'm a mess right now. Or you can find us over on Twitter at Carpool Gaming, right here, youtube.com/Carpool Gaming, twitch.tv/Carpool Gaming Live, and of course, podcast services around the globe. So for Garrett Bland, I'm Ryan Tiffin. This has been the 158th level of the RPG Cave, and we're out.
Sephiroth. Bye-bye.